Alton Towers has an insane amount of Easter eggs that you probably have never noticed while at the park. This ranges from really tiny things that you'd probably never notice, and other Easter eggs that have completely shaped and changed the park, as well as individual rides. So today I'm going to go through 10 of the coolest Easter eggs at Alton Towers, starting with Nemesis Reborn. Now, of course, Nemesis Reborn was the new coaster for 2024, and it has an absolute insane amount of Easter eggs just throughout the whole area. I mean, honestly, I can make a video just about the entirety of Forbidden Valley, but here are some of the highlights, some of the coolest Easter eggs in that area. Now, you may have noticed both helicopters in the Forbidden Valley area, one, you know, actually in the entrance of the area, and the other in the Nemesis queue line. Both have different and individual code names, which both actually have a bit of a hidden meaning behind them. So firstly, the helicopter, when you actually enter the area, has the acronym THNDR-V. This is a bit of a nod to the area's previous history before, you know, it became Forbidden Valley. It was Thunder Valley. And then the other helicopter has the acronym SB-IFT, which is a bit more of an obscure one right here, but this is actually supposed to stand for the Sits Back It's Fright timeline. Before, you know, they just, rebuilt the whole thing. But it doesn't stop there, because there's also a ton more codes around the area that kind of relate to the people that, you know, made Nemesis and Nemesis Reborn happen. So first of all, on the crates nearby the helicopter, just near Subterra, you can find the code ID/B.77. Now, this actually relates to the park's current divisional director, which is 𝗙𝗂𝗋𝗃𝗃. I think that's how you say her last name, right? I actually don't know. But anyway, of course, the B stands for Bianca, and then the 77 stands for her birth year, which was 1977. And then you have very similar things on the maintenance shed with John Burton and John Wardley's initials, and then their birth names next to them, just like with Bianca's. But anyway, although there's a ton more things right here in Forbidden Valley, I'm going to move on to Oblivion now, which holds one of the weirdest Easter eggs of them all. Now, if you've ever actually walked through the Oblivion queue before, you may have noticed that there's a very strange object in one of the buildings. And if you're like me, you may have wondered, what is this? What does this have to do with the ride's theme? What is this like? Well, it turns out it's actually a projector that was previously used in a ride called the Planetarium, I believe. I don't understand how it works. I don't understand where it was placed. All I know is that it was a projector, and it was in Planetarium, and I think that was in X Sector. I don't know. It's definitely one of the stranger Easter eggs, which is just, you know, very randomly there. But Alton Towers does actually do this a lot, where they recycle things from previous rides. There's a bit of an Easter egg into new rides. And well, speaking of recycling things from other rides, have you ever noticed that Alton Towers has a lot of rocks around the paths and just around the park? Well, this very, very heavy use of rocks is actually because, well, Alton Towers just has quite a lot of them laying around. 3 of their major coasters in the park, which is Oblivion, 𝗙𝗿𝗄𝗃, and Nemesis, required a lot of groundwork to be placed in where they are, especially Nemesis, which was just blown up. They just blew a big hole up in a field and went, yep, now we build a coaster in there. Good stuff. But obviously from this, they had a lot of rocks left over, and that's why you can find so many around the park. But you may actually be asking me, why did they put Nemesis in a big hole? Why did they have to dig up so much space for Oblivion and 𝗙𝗿𝗄𝗃? Well, that's actually because the park has a very, very strict height restriction. You may have actually noticed that a lot of the rides at Alton Towers don't go very high, especially compared to parks like Thorpe Park, where you can find a very, very tall coaster, Hyperia and Stealth, and of course Blackpool Pleasure Beach with the big one. And then you go to Alton Towers, and they're all just like very, very short coasters, aren't they? What's that about? Well, that's actually because the local council where Alton Towers is restricts the park from building above the tree line. This is in an effort to basically hide the park from local residents, seeing as it's in a very, you know, countryside area, a lot of expensive, influential houses there, who basically, despite, you know, living next to a theme park, don't want to accept that they live near a theme park, and so, no building above the trees. If I see a coaster, I'm gonna flip the fuck out. So this is why 𝗙𝗿𝗄𝗃 is basically in a big concrete hole, so is Oblivion, with most of its drop actually being underground, and then, of course, Nemesis, where literally the whole coaster, except from the chain lift, is built in a big hole that was not previously there. And I guess just a bit of a bonus Easter egg right here relating to this. If you look very closely, you may actually notice that the very highest parts of Rita and Galactica are actually painted dark green, which is especially weird because, well, the rest of the coasters aren't painted dark green. Why is that? Well, of course, it's also relating to the height restrictions. They did bend the rules a little bit and build above the trees, but to make it so that it's as hidden as possible, they painted these pieces of track green, basically just in an effort to disguise them as trees. You will never see them because we painted this steel dark green. I gotta say, though, yeah, it did work. Pretty genius, I guess. And, well, that segues us perfectly onto our next part right here, because talking about trees, Hex has a tree. So, obviously, a large part of Hex's story is based around a tree that's been chained up by the 15th Earl of Shrewsbury, which, by the way, we don't talk about how I said the 16th Earl in the review video. Shh, okay, no talking about that. But this tree that's actually being chained up is very, very real. You can go visit in real life. It's just outside the park's boundaries. It's not actually in Alton Towers, but it is where the Earl used to have his driveway to get up to the tower. Although, sorry to burst your bubble, but the tree was probably chained up so that the Earl didn't have any, you know, logs, branches falling onto the path where he went by. That's probably why it's probably not because of a curse. So yeah, sorry to ruin that for you, I guess. Although it's actually completely unknown why exactly this was happened, this is just the best guess that people have. And before Hex was even built, in fact, even before Alton Towers became a theme park, it was a local legend around the area, which adds a certain amount of authenticity to Hex's whole story, especially being located in the ruins of the towers. Okay, but now let's actually head back over to X Sector, because I want to talk a bit about the Smiler. Now, the Smiler has a ton of Easter eggs, such as the 14 security cameras out front of the entrance, which of course relates to its 14 inversions. And there's a bunch of other stuff in the area, but one of the main things that I want to talk about right here is actually the gift shop. Now, you may be thinking, why? It's a gift shop. There's surely nothing interesting in there. Well, actually, have you ever noticed that a piece of the flooring in the Smiler's gift shop looks very, very strange? You know, it's different to the rest of it. Well, that's because this was supposed to be a glass pane where you'd actually be able to see the first inversion of Smiler. You know, the one that's completely indoors, you know, in complete darkness and, you know, open to the elements. So yeah, predictably, you can't see anything because it's dirty, it's dark, and, yeah, it just doesn't really work. You can't see anything. It's just, yeah. Well done. But if you do crouch down, you look very, very closely, and you pay a lot of attention, you can actually tell that there is the coaster track down there, and you can see the coaster going through there. Unfortunately, though, yeah, you normally can't actually see anything through there. And well, moving on from the Smiler, I want to talk about secret weapons. Now, Alton Towers has a very, very unique naming system that I don't think any other park has. Obviously, a lot of parks have code names, you know, they do stuff like that, but did you know that Alton Towers actually calls its rides secret weapons? A little bit over the top, Alton Towers, they're just roller coasters. They're not weapons. You calm down. But anyway, how this works is that Alton Towers name all of their major projects, starting from Secret Weapon 1 all the way up to Secret Weapon 8, which was Wicker Man. That's kind of a code name to indicate that this is a big project that you want to keep your eyes on. You want to be looking at this. It's probably pretty cool. They don't use this code name for stuff like 𝗙𝗃𝗃 Manor, which was just a retheme, or Hex, for example. They didn't even use this for Nemesis Reborn, seeing as that's also not a new attraction. It's just a retheme, retrack. And just to deal another blow to you people that like Rita, because I know there's some of you out there, well, Rita wasn't even classed as a secret weapon. Alton Towers didn't even deem it a major enough attraction and a major enough addition to the park to even call it a secret weapon. And you know what makes that even better is that Secret Weapon and Secret Weapon 2 were literally Arrow pipeline coasters that were never built, but they still get to be called a secret weapon. However, Rita, which is actually still currently in the park, yeah, no, that's not a secret weapon. We don't class that. So next time you go on Rita, think about how disgraceful the coaster is that even Alton Towers don't think it's a major addition. And now for this next Easter egg. Well, I'm going to be exposing Alton Towers because they are big, smelly liars, especially their marketing department, Nick Varney. And I say this because, well, did you know that the world's first vertical drop coaster isn't actually vertical? I'm not joking. At the time of Oblivion's creation, it wasn't really possible because of the wheel mechanism to create an actual vertical drop with around 90 degrees. So quite embarrassingly, they had to settle for an 87-degree drop, which if you do look and stand next to it, you will notice it isn't quite vertical. And well, speaking of lies, Galactica, the world's first flying coaster, isn't the world's first flying coaster. What the fuck? Alton Towers, can you stop advertising things as the world's first something when it isn't even the world's first? And that's because Galactica was actually beaten by Skytrack, which was opened 5 years earlier in 1997 at Granada Studios, which technically means that Galactica wasn't even the world's first flying coaster. I mean, I guess it is if you put like a bit of an asterisk and say like Cheruli first flying coaster or first B&M flying coaster. But I mean, there's just no way to even save Oblivion. That isn't vertical. But by definition, that isn't a vertical drop. You lying liars. Anyway, I'll stop exposing you, Alton Towers. Let's talk about the Flume. So a lot of you don't actually know, if you've only visited the park in the last couple of years, that Wicker Man used to be a log flume. I know I don't mean that, you know, there was a log flume in the exact same layout as Wicker Man. That'd be kind of weird, actually. But that area did used to have a log flume called the Flume, which you can still see at Alton Towers. If you walk through the path that kind of dips under Wicker Man's first, you know, Airtime hill, I guess you'd call it, and then past Conga River Rapids Station, if you look to the right, you'll see some concrete. Yeah, I know. Pretty exciting, guys. But these are actually major parts that are still left over from the Flume, which are still there, I believe, although I can't confirm this, because the trees around the area where this is are very delicate and very special, or something along those lines. And long story short, removing this concrete would kind of fuck up the roots or something like that, something along those lines. But it is definitely a nice little callback to a previous ride, even if it is just there screaming to be killed already. Alton Towers, let it die already. And well, with that, that brings us to our 10th and final Easter egg right here. And I say 10th and final Easter egg, it's actually about 4 billion Easter eggs into one. And that's because we need to talk about the curse of Easter eggs, and it's 9,000 different callbacks to different rides. So similarly to Forbidden Valley's whole redo when Nemesis Reborn came, there are a ton of callbacks to the ride's original designers, with big metal signs out the front of the actual area where 𝗙𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗃 Manor is that say Wardley Estate Agents, and you can also find little nods to the Spark Estate. This is obviously a callback to Keith Sparks and John Wardley, two major people who helped make the haunted house, which FYI was 𝗙𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗀 Manor about 42 iterations ago. There's also a ton more Easter eggs around the actual rides area and actual ride itself. So many that I'm not going to go through all of them right here, but I will chuck up some photos on screen of a bunch of Easter eggs around the ride and its area. But honestly, just like Forbidden Valley, I could do an entire video just about 𝗙𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗀 Manor's Easter eggs. There are so many. So I guess let me know if you want to see that and another one on Forbidden Valley. But yes, there are 10 of some of the coolest Easter eggs at Alton Towers. There are literally, I think, about a million more that I could go through. So like I said, let me know if you want to see that. And let me know if you want to see one of these on some other UK theme parks or theme parks abroad in different countries. And well, other than that, on the theme of Alton Towers, why not check out this video right here where I actually go through some of the best and worst rides at Alton Towers. Trust me, you're going to want to watch it if you're going to Alton Towers so you avoid return. And other than that, bye.